everyone, I'm Carlota Pico from the Content Mix, and I'm excited to be here today with Yaron Hubin, who is Global Social Media Manager at EF Education First and has over 5 years of experience in marketing and communications. Welcome, Yaron, and thank you so much for joining us today on the Content Mix.
Hi, Carlota. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
The pleasure is ours. I can't wait to start this interview. Just so that our audience has a little bit of context about you and what you do, could you talk to me about your background, about EF Education First as well, and how you got into your current role?
Sure. So a bit about my background is that whilst at university, I actually studied history and politics. I studied my passion there. But whilst I was there, I set up a small company with a friend of mine, and we were working with startups, working on business development strategies and looking for some funding for them. But after countless conversations, I started to realize that, in fact, the digital strategy was one of the biggest things that was omitted from the plan, right? People weren't putting so much importance into that. So I actually joined another company that my friend founded, which was a small boutique social media agency with the sole purpose of working with small businesses and startups and really working closely on developing that social media strategy and how to give them that sort of edge in their industry, right? And that was really cool. We traveled all around Europe, giving a lot of cool conferences, working with so many different style of startups and businesses. But I went when I finished my last year of university, I found this amazing opportunity back home with EF Education First as an intern. So I took it, and one of the most awesome things I really enjoyed whilst being there was the amount of responsibility they gave you, actually, and the freedom to work on so many different projects. So from the very get-go, you were involved in campaigns, influencer marketing, social media listening, analytics, and so on and so forth. So I decided to take up the full-time role after university. And that's how I ended up at EF Education First. And for those wondering about EF Education First, it's the world leader in international language travel. So we're a travel and education company with over 52 destinations offered in 12 languages. But we also have lots of different products like high school exchange, tours, and et cetera, and et cetera.
Okay, so how exciting. So you're a politician / historian turned into an entrepreneur and now a social media expert. What a diverse background.
I should probably update my LinkedIn bio to that description. I prefer it better. But funny enough, it's actually whilst doing history and politics that I actually wanted to get into the field of marketing, because I realized early on that it's rather important for entities or organizations or companies to really control that narrative, right? And once you're able to control that narrative, you have so much more space to work from when it comes to either engaging your audience or reaching new audiences. But it really is important to get that basics right. So that's actually the sort of shift as well towards from politics to marketing in my mind.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. I actually started off my career in government relations and PR. And the reason that I went into marketing was because of how important I found it to be for governments to communicate with their audience, which in this case is their citizens. And later on, I started doing corporate communications and also brand marketing. So I completely understand where you're coming from when it comes to tying politics to social media.
Absolutely.
Okay. As a global social media manager, what goals do you set for your social media accounts and how do you determine success?
Yeah. So several things. I mean, when it comes to our social media accounts themselves, one thing that I personally really like to look at is reach, engagement, and the collection of UGC. Of course, when it comes to reach, when we're talking about the organic strategy across social media, we know that it's capped if you're a business, so that Facebook just wants you to spend more money. So one of the biggest one of the biggest KPIs really I look at is if we can beat the average reach in general. I think also with a very strong engagement rate, you will by result increase that reach as well, but you do foster that sense of community as well. And when it comes to the accounts, which is something that's very important to us, And it's also very important for the algorithms on social media. So if you're interested in social media success, definitely focus on that. But also UGC, as I mentioned, we're very much a people's company. We send students all over the world to take part in these inspiring, life-changing courses. So the UGC that we collect, we need to really think about how we collect it, how we send it to our visual design team, we turn it around and we post it straight away. Because that for us is an important metric in determining just how authentic our social media channels can be at the end of the day. And so that people can engage with something that is authentic and calls to them, right?
Mm-hmm. And so by UGC, just for our audience, you're referring to user-generated content.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And when you're looking for user-generated content, you're really hoping to receive content that's authentic and that is in line with your brand and your voice?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's quite interesting because our voice, so to speak, is really the experiences our students have, and so we're quite lucky in that sense.
Yeah.
But we have a global ambassador network. We work a lot with influencers, macro and micro, and also the students that we send. This is really a key strategy in the user-generated content collection, that we ask them to use those hashtags or send in those pieces of content. And it's any form. It's people jumping out of planes for the first time. It's testimonial content. It's them talking to their school about EF. It's lots of different things.
Okay, what an exciting job, Yaron. Let's take a closer look at social listening. What is social listening and why is it important?
Yeah, social listening is a tool really that allows you to kind of deep search anything to do with certain keywords that's happening on the digital space. It also allows you to have a really deep understanding of your performance as well on social media. So to give you a rough idea, for instance, if we're interested in our brand, we would put in the keywords associated with our brand, and it would pull up all the sort of conversations that are happening online about the EF brand, and we'd be able to determine whether things are positive, whether things are negative. We can track in real time the change in sentiment. We can also find influencers that are talking about the brand, which is a very neat trick. There's lots of different things you can do. And, it goes from understanding brand sentiment to crisis management to crisis prevention and so on and so forth. So
it sounds like an excellent tool. So I was on your LinkedIn profile, on the EF Education First LinkedIn profile, and EF Education First has over 300,000 followers on LinkedIn. How do you or would you manage customers giving negative social media reviews about your services or about your programs?
It's a great question. I think the way you manage negative reviews in general is by talking to people as if their opinion matters, right? And I think that's what people want. So a lot of times we've managed to completely de-escalate situations just by listening, by then coordinating with the teams that we have to. In general, what we aim to do is turn something around as quick as possible. There was an interesting piece of research that suggested that, people expect an answer to a negative review in 24 hours. I think that's way too generous. I think people expect an answer as soon as possible, especially if you're a global brand. So, that's what we aim to do. We also aim to reach out personally to sort this out as soon as possible. So working with your relevant teams is definitely something important to us.
Okay, so your strategy when it comes to negative reviews is really about listening to your customers and letting them know that you're on top of whatever their comment is and you're doing your best to provide them with the best solution going forward. Just like really listening to them and having their back and giving them a response as quick as possible, as opposed to like waiting 24 hours. Because realistically, these millennials and Generation Zs are impatient. We all are. So I would include myself as a millennial. And the faster that a brand is able to respond to me, the happier I am usually.
For sure. And I think we're reaching a time in social media where we don't make the distinction that it's a company anymore. We engage with companies as if they're just friends or fellow people, right? So you send that message, you want something back as soon as possible. Otherwise, you get that slight irritation, like when someone reads your WhatsApp message and doesn't respond, right?
You actually in my mind.
So, no. Engagement is extremely important for us on social media.
Okay, Yaron, moving into your brand management experience, I want to talk a little bit about the recent Black Lives Matter movement and brands from around the world's response to it. Do you think brands should react to social issues on their social channels? And if so, what type of brands, in what manner, and why?
Yeah, I think that especially today, depending on your audience, of course, but people are expecting that companies have a stance on something. As I mentioned before, I think we're not just businesses at the end of the day. Our audience, our customers expect that we have a set of values and that we're committed as well to, leaving the planet in a better place than we found it, so to speak, if I had to put it cheesy, right? But so I don't think it's a matter of which brands or which sectors can get involved and which shouldn't. I think the line is very thin, and it's companies, if they have something to show for it, then they should definitely commit to saying something or taking a stance. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of companies issue statements that are blank and vague in support of something, when in reality, in the background, there isn't really anything that they're doing to improve a situation. I think that from a brand perspective, that's extremely dangerous, because people are not stupid, and they can find that out for themselves. And so, from an online reputation perspective, that can backfire very, very quickly. So my advice would be, when it comes to social justice or social movements, is that you make statements that you can back up with a claim or with some sort of action history that you've done as a company, right?
Yeah, definitely. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about COVID-19 as well. Some brands have decided to address the issue head on, and other brands have gone radio silent across their social media channels. How has EF Education's First reacted to COVID-19 across its channels?
Yeah, so in regards to our customer engagement on social media, our whole business is travel, right? International travel. So we've had to make sure that we're extremely responsive to people's questions, to problems. So we've been making sure that we're there in that sense. When it comes to our social media content that we're pushing out, it's been more. Let's not focus on traveling right now, but it will come back, and we continue to try and inspire as many people to think about the future, right? We've also been working with a lot of our local stakeholders, including our schools, as to social distancing methods, how to create masks. So there's also been that fun element to it. And in addition to such, we've come up with a lot of different style of content that people can enjoy whilst at home. So, for instance, we had an Explore the Language series, in which we took our audience, from the palm of their hand around the world to all across our destinations. We taught them how to make Costa Rican coffee, how to make local Italian cuisine, so on and so forth. So for us, it was still about engaging our audience, letting them know that there are still ways to enjoy international cultures whilst we're not traveling at the moment, but also, keeping them inspired for the future.
I love that pivot strategy. I actually had the opportunity to interview the global social media manager at SkyScanner, and I asked him a similar question. His response was very similar as well, that although right now people aren't able to travel because of the health crisis, it doesn't mean that people aren't able to connect with each other over technology, and that one day we all will be able to travel again, and the new normal will possibly be a different but more exciting type of normal, because traveling has always been exciting, but now I think it's just that much more exciting since we can't do it. So the day that we'll be able to jump back on an airplane will be like discovering the world all over again.
No, and you can see that, right? A lot of people were still writing to us, saying we can't wait to travel again. When is this school going to open, or any news on this? So the excitement was there. But I think what's really important, regardless of the good times or the bad times, is that we need to keep in mind that humans are extremely social creatures. They're narrative-based, storytelling-based. And so whatever content, whatever the times, if you can kind of trigger into that and trigger some sort of humane responses to the content you're putting out there, I think as a brand on social media, you're doing well. And that's something that we were trying to do during these tough times.
Mm-hmm. And I love how you're humanizing your channels as well. You're very much aware that on the other side of a computer, there's a human with emotions, a human with stress, a human with anxiety, a human with just so many different characteristics and personalities, and that you're addressing these humans in different ways according to your services, your programs, but more than anything, just letting them know that you have their back and that you're going to be constantly engaging with them because you're in it for the long run and not in it just for a quick win.
Yes, for sure. I mean, that's what we try to do. And I mean, the audiences that we have are, past students. So we definitely want to keep that vibe strong, but also customers, potential future customers, right? So we want to make sure that they understand the sort of experience they're going to get offline. And also one thing that's extremely important is that, like, today, the average person scrolls through 300 feet of content, which is the equivalent to the Statue of Liberty. So we need to make sure that we stand out somehow, that we kind of navigate through this content pollution, I call, because not everything is relevant to the average social media user. And we need to make sure that we somehow become relevant, right, to the person that is looking at the content. So
wow.
Again, good times or bad times, that's what we tried to do during COVID.
Okay. My eyes definitely popped out with the Statue of Liberty comment.
Yeah.
Let's finish this section off with a practical example. Which social media campaigns have you admired lately and why?
Oh, interesting. I tend to think that simplicity is key, and anything that kind of triggers some sort of response is really cool. So from the bottom of the barrel, I really enjoyed Burger King's campaign, which was, I don't know if you remember the banana that was sellotaped to the wall in the Basel World in Miami.
No, I don't. But please describe it for us. Let's imagine it.
So this banana was sellotaped to a blank canvas as part of a portrait, and it sold for $120,000. And so, taking on the hype, Burger King very simplistically just took a picture, used the picture of the banana, and put the price tag of the banana, and then put a French fry sellotaped to a wall and wrote 1 cent. So that was extremely popular. I thought it was brilliant. It was comical. It got a lot of social media attention. But then on the other end, I'm a big fan of what of the content or the campaigns that KLM run in general. I have to say, to date, my favorite campaigns they've run are two. One of them was during Christmas, in which they set up a table in the middle of the airport, and the table would only release the food when 12 strangers sat down and had a meal together, right? And of course, you can imagine this was like wildfire. It was emotive. It was very nice. And in addition to such, they also went round before people were boarding their flights, and they were asking them about their story. Who are you visiting? What are you doing? And it really drew out some very, very beautiful stories that we all as travelers could relate to, right? So no, I have to say KLM is definitely up on my list of favorite campaigns. Whatever they do is fantastic. I think in general, if you want a smart campaign that works, you need to understand how people operate. And we are driven by emotions. And even the coldest person will react to something that is emotional, right? And I think that is key, and they do it very well.
Yeah, but I mean, talking the talk is a lot easier than walking the walk. So although I think a lot of marketing professionals from around the world understand that they need to create emotions through their campaigns, I think it's a lot easier said than done. And just hearing stories like the ones that you were just talking about is quite inspirational and very admirable of whoever created those strategies.
Well, I highly recommend that you go check out our Christmas video. Actually, we did something similar.
Tell me about it.
If you, I'm happy to tell you about it. Yes. But no, so we, during Christmas, we have a lot of long-term students that don't go back home. Some are in Hawaii, for instance, and to travel back for maybe a week is not economically feasible, or for whatever reasons, right? So what we decided to do is we went to a couple of students' houses, their parents' houses, and we filmed the Christmas message for them. And then on the other end, we asked the student to come into a room, And on the laptop in front of them was the Christmas video from their parents and family, basically telling them, we miss you, we're very proud of you, and so on and so forth. And then they were greeted with a nice gift that we had organized with a lot of local delicacies from where they were, but also from back home. And the idea was that wherever you are with us, we're your home away from home. And yeah. And so you can imagine there were a lot of tears flowing at the office whilst we were editing this video. But
yeah, no, you're going to make me cry. I just literally touched my heart because I was just overwhelmed with emotions. Just listening to it. I didn't even see the campaign.
Well, you can check it out on our Instagram. It's there.
Yes, we will definitely link it for our audience to be able to click on that link and check out the campaign themselves.
Good.
Sounds beautiful. Okay, moving into our set of rapid fire questions, which are basically your recommendations to our audience. To get this section started off, I'd like to ask you about your source of inspiration. So, for example, a professional role model or an influencer that you admire.
Yeah, I think in the field of marketing, I'm very lucky to have a great boss, very inspirational in that sense. But also at the beginning of my marketing career, Gary Vee definitely was one of them. I think there's a lot of useful content there, especially about content marketing, and his approach is very refreshing.
Okay, yeah. Are you looking for a promotion?
No, it's okay. Well, maybe if my boss is watching.
I'm just pulling your leg right now. Okay, and what about a book or a publication that you'd like to recommend to our audience?
Yeah, I think my all-time favorite is *Sapiens* by Yuval Harari. I think the focus on understanding the way the human works is key to understanding how social media users operate. So I definitely recommend that book, and you just draw the parallels to marketing.
Okay, and last but not least, what's your favorite app at the moment and why?
What's my favorite app at the moment? Oh, that's a great question. You know what? I'm going to stick to maybe traditional, but I'm really enjoying Instagram at the moment when it comes to the social media apps. So that would have to be it.
Okay.
Instagram.
What makes Instagram so enjoyable at the moment?
I think if you follow your interests, you follow people that inspire you and create good content, I think it's very hard not to like that app. But you need to take the time to curate it very well. I've realized that. Yeah, but I think also with their push now to with more vertical content, there's a lot of brands posting great stuff there. So you end up spending more time on Instagram than you do on YouTube. At least myself. Yeah. So.
Well, I'm a big fan of Instagram myself as well. I probably spend at least 30 minutes a day just scrolling through my friends' stories and photos. And it's a great way to just keep in touch with my network as well and see how they're doing. Although I am a big fan of YouTube. So everybody watching us, check out our podcast. And Yaron, thank you so much for joining us on the Content Mix. It was an absolute pleasure to meet you and to learn about your experience in social media and across all the different hats that you've worn.
Yeah, thank you. The pleasure was mine. Really. Thank you.
And to everyone listening in today, thank you so much for joining us on the Content Mix. For more perspectives on the content marketing industry in Europe, check out the Content Mix. We'll be releasing interviews just like this one every week, so keep on tuning in. Thanks again. Have a fabulous day and see you next time. Bye.